Cumbria is a capital for adventure, home to England's highest summits, some breathtaking scenery, and of course, hundreds of miles of incredible mountain bike trails. Cycle Active has been based here since 1996. It's a hub for our UK skills and leadership courses, as well as our worldwide holidays. The Cycle Active team is made up of myself, Chris Ford, Rich Barnard, John Chalmers, Alex Sol, and of course Banjo the dog. We all know these Lake District trails inside out. We guide and coach on them every day, and in the course of this DVD, we'll introduce you to a few of our favourites. We're here in the Lake District, in Cumbria, in the north of England. Behind us we've got Lake Ullswater, we've also got the summit of Blencathra, otherwise known as Saddleback. We've got the whole of the Helvellyn Ridge stretching beyond, with the last remnants of snow from the winter. Climbing skills are a great place to start with any skills instruction, because if you can be efficient on the climbs, you're going to have plenty of energy for the rest of the day ahead. So let's take a look at climbing, and in particular cadence, which is the speed that you spin the pedals when you're going along. When you're cycling along on the flat or going up a hill, you want to keep your pedals spinning at a nice smooth rhythm. You're aiming for a cadence of about 60 to 80 revolutions per minute. What that means is that about once every second your pedals complete one full circle. The idea behind getting this good spinning technique going is that you want to use what we call our slow twitch muscles rather than fast twitch muscles. These are the muscles that work for long endurance and they can spin all day long. As soon as you push hard in a much higher cadence, you're using fast twitch, the muscles that sprinters use. They give you a lot of power, but they only last for a short while. And as you can see, we've got plenty of mountains to cover. We want to keep our energy levels high for the whole day. So getting that cadence right early on, very important. On that first climb of the day, it's important to think about more things than just your cadence. You also want to get your body position right so that you can stay balanced and the bike will track smoothly up the hill. What this means is moving your weight a little forwards onto the nose of the saddle, leaning over the bars, but keeping your elbows tucked in. A little bit of tension backwards on the handlebar grips will enable you to track really smooth and straight all the way up. As soon as you feel a bit of a wobble, slide forwards. But at the same time, if you can feel the back wheels spinning out, you can always shift your weight backwards. So climbing is not a static thing on a mountain bike, it's dynamic. It's about moving so that you remain going in a straight line, perfect balance all the way. We're at the top of Husker Hill and we're getting ready for the descent. A couple of quick things we can do to make this smoother and safer. First, let's get our saddle down just a little, give us more room to manoeuvre on the bike. Next, think about the position we're going to take on the bike as we go downhill. Body position, really important. We're going to talk about it some more at the bottom, but for now, let's just focus on cranks level, heels dip. We're going to stay low and loose on the bike and enjoy the ride. Should we go? Come on, Banjo! When you're mountain biking downhill, there's a few really simple things you can do to give yourself bags of extra control and comfort and confidence on the trails. We're going to move back a little, but most important of all, we're going to change the angle of our feet so that all the pressure of our body pushing forwards, instead of being absorbed through the hands, causing tension in our shoulders and our neck, we're going to move it down to our feet. We're going to dip our heels so that your feet can absorb all that energy of you pushing into the bike as you descend. As well as taking up that position that allows the energy to go through your feet, you want to keep your body low and loose on the bike, especially a little bit of room in between your knees so that the bike, if it's hitting lumps and bumps, can move side to side without affecting your balance or your position. Thinking about vision, you need to consider how far ahead you've got to plan. Just like driving a car down a motorway, you look further ahead. Riding a bike downhill, you've got to be scanning further and further down the trail, picking out the obstacles that you need to be concerned with well ahead of time. The other part of vision to think about is your peripheral vision. A lot of mountain bikers don't realise how much you need to trust your peripheral vision. But ask yourself, how often when you're walking down the street do you look at your feet to see where they're landing? The same is true of mountain biking. We've got to get used to not looking at our front wheel when we're descending. Newcomers to the sport tend to want to see everything they're going to hit. But as you improve, you've got to let your gaze stretch further, trust that your peripheral vision is going to pick up your front wheel, the trail immediately in front of you, and adapt to it. That's what it's for. So the final element to think about is velocity. That's the speed you choose and the line you choose. You don't have to start off mountain biking going at full speed down the trails. It's more important to tie this in with your vision. The faster you learn to read a trail, the faster you can ride it. And look far ahead and focus on letting the bike flow, letting your body absorb those lumps and bumps, and just enjoy the ride. If you want to weave and swerve, do it. It's all mountain biking, it's all good fun. When you're riding on the trails, you'll sometimes encounter steeper sections such as this, which we call a roll-off. There's a few simple things you can do to make this flow smoothly and confidently. Let's consider this in terms of our body, our bike, our vision and our velocity. First of all, your body. You need to raise up off the bike and move backwards as you're going over the edge. Not too far back, otherwise the bike can loop out underneath you at the bottom. So make sure you remain roughly central and able to move back and forth. Your vision, again, very important. You want to scan the landing as soon as you can. As these things get steeper, you need to be higher as you approach so you can spot where you're going to go and then move your weight backwards. Velocity, well, that's about confidence and it's about experience. Initially, take it steady, cover both brakes with your fingers, but you will get to a point on the lip which we call our point of no return. At that stage, you don't want to be grabbing brakes, but just flowing smoothly over. so set your speed before you roll off. So here we're progressing on to another section that's just a little bit steeper. It is a little harder, but the technique stays exactly the same. So as long as you've got your heels dipped and you're moving your weight, you can still ride it in a really flowing and confident manner. Here's what it's showing us.
Braking. With the modern advances of hydraulic disc brakes on mountain bikes, there's a lot of stopping power if used correctly. We want to make sure that our body's in the correct position to start off with. If we make sure working from our feet, our pedals are level, heels are dipped down, our body weight is pushed into the pedals rather than into the handlebars. On the knees, we want to flex the knees and we want to bring our hips so that they're in towards the seat rather than back. Flexing the knees at all times, absorbing any bumps coming through the tyres. Coming on and up to our upper body, we want our elbows to just have a slight bend in them, and we want it so that our forearms are almost looking flat over the bike with our aggressive braking technique. Vision wants to be looking ahead at all times, viewing any parts of the trail or looking for the most amount of grip on the trail for our effective braking. One finger or maybe two fingers, depending on how you ride, to get the most effective braking out of the levers as well. For the best performance out of your bike, we want to be looking to keep the bike centred and upright as much as possible. We also want to be using the front brake more than the back brake, trying to keep the wheels rotating at all times so that we're not skidding. As soon as we're skidding, we're then out of control. Our bike position is relevant to our body position. Because we have our heels down, our body position is thrown into the pedals and our weight isn't transferred onto the handlebars. Therefore, we can start to use the front brake a lot more and unlock the potential power the front brake has. We want to use the front brake with a feathered technique rather than the grabby on-off technique. Front brake, we want to balance out maybe 60% front brake, 40% back. When learning to brake on steeper terrain, you may find that you go through a section called confidence braking. Confidence braking can be seen as always gently pressing the brakes for no reason whatsoever. We need to try and eliminate that so that the wheels can rotate for maximum grip when going down the trail. Only use the brakes when the brakes are needed. Cornering. We're always going to encounter corners when riding our bikes on the trails. We now need to have a look how to get our bike around the trails smooth, fast and precise every single time. We first need to look at what the bike's doing. We need to lean the bike over, less of a steering motion with the handlebars. The outside pedal drops down to the 6 o'clock position so that we can place all our weight onto the outside pedal. It therefore increases the grip on the edges of the tyres, cutting the bike into the ground as it goes around the corner. Our arms, we want our inside arm pushing down into the corner, almost going straight, with a bent outside arm. Head and hips always getting turned into the corner as well, making sure that we can see the next part of the trail. With our outside pedal down in the 6 o'clock position, this means that our leg can be almost extended with a slight bend in the knee. We can then twist our head and hips into the corner. We can start to move our weight forwards and backwards with our hips, increasing the grip on the front tyre, or maybe increasing the grip on the back tyre wherever it's needed throughout the corner. It's not a static position with our hips. We want to use our cone of movement. On the entry into the corner, we want to make sure that we use our brakes, trying to scrub as much speed as possible so we can have a smooth arc all the way around, getting the most grip off our tyres. If we can, if the corner will allow us, release the brakes at the apex, accelerating through down to the next piece of trail. We're always going to encounter tight, twisty turns. We don't necessarily always have to put our outside foot down into the 6 o'clock position just to find the grip. We can keep our pedals nice and level and stay in that attack position. Bending the knees, maybe a slight flex to the outside of the knees as well to make them baggy. Therefore the bike can lean underneath the rider. The elbows need to be flexed, vision needs to be forwards. Picking out the rocks, the twists and the turn in our peripheral vision at all times as it comes towards the front wheel. Our body movement can be adjusted forward and backwards just so that we can balance the bike out, trying to find the grip in the tyres. Keeping our pedals level, we can keep our weight over the central part of the tyre, moving the bike over to the edge of the trail, maybe finding a small lip or berm to push the bike into. By implementing all of these small but very valuable techniques, it means we can get through smoother, faster corners and enjoy our riding a lot more. Pedal wheelie. We use the pedal wheelie when we're wanting to loft the front end of the bike up and over a tree root, maybe a step. It's performed by getting the bike set up correctly first. The gear, we have to use a suitable gear for the terrain that we're on. If we're climbing, we're going to be in a low gear anyway. The pedal itself is the key part of the skill. As we approach the obstacle, the lead foot needs to be at the 1 o'clock position. This is when the surge of power, the burst of power from your foot, goes through and kicks down all the way through to 5 o'clock. By having our arms nice and straight, sat near the back of the seat, this takes the weight off the front wheel and the bike can pivot over the back wheel. common fault when people are performing the pedal wheelie is pulling the bars into the chest. What we're aiming to do is get our weight further back, so by sitting up and having good vision down the trail and having our head up at all times helps us weight shift to the back of the bike. When we're looking at a more advanced pedal wheelie, over steeper steps, over bigger distances, we're looking maybe to perform the pedal wheelie and let the bike come up to us in the chest, but there's no pull. Therefore, we can then transfer weight over the front of the bike, if needs be, to get the back wheel up over a step as well. When performing the pedal wheelie, we always want to cover the rear brake as well. Therefore, if the front wheel comes up into the air too much, it will save us from falling off the back of the bike and bring the front wheel back down to the ground with a sharp pull. The pedal wheelie can also be performed over a longer distance. Sometimes we'll need to get our other foot involved as well and have the bike on the back wheel for maybe 1 or 2 bike lengths. To perform this and stay in a straight line, we may need to offset the bike ever so slightly, so when we transfer our weight down onto the lead pedal, it then sits the bike up straight and doesn't waver off to the side.
The pump manual. This is a technique that allows us to lift our front wheel up and over trail obstacles such as drainage ditches and roots, allowing us to maintain speed down our trail, keeping momentum and negotiating those obstacles safely. Once stood up in the attack position nice and tall, we initiate our pump manual with a quick snap, pushing the bike away. Stood up nice and tall, moving our weight backwards. To help us, we can drop our heels, this will move our weight behind the saddle. Once moving backwards, you can then sink your hips behind the saddle. We can then control the height of our manual by how hard we accelerate that back wheel through, by pushing equally on our pedals. The phrase of "look where you want to go" is really important while performing this manual. It's very easy to have your eye line drawn in to the obstacle. This will lower your head and it will also shift your weight forwards onto these bars, something we don't want. So as we come up to the obstacle, definitely look at it, recognise that it's there, but then shift our head forwards, shift our gaze to where we want to go. This will enable us to move our weight backwards and get our legs into play to help us perform this pump manual. The rebound manual uses a very similar technique to our pump manual, but this time we're going to use our trail feature and some different timing to help us lift this front wheel. The difference in the timing of the rebound manual is whereas before on our pump manual we were starting before the obstacle, this time we're going to use the force of hitting the obstacle to help rebound our front wheel into the air. If you can master the manual, this will help you save energy as you can maintain your speed, becoming smoother down the trail.
Drop-offs. When performing the manoeuvre of going from one level to another, we need to use a mixture of either a pump manual or a rebound manual, depending on the lip of the drop. The rider's looking to not loft the front wheel as high this time on the drop-offs. the aim is to get the front wheel level with the back wheel. There may be some angle change, trying to get on the downhill transition, ready for a smooth landing. When learning drop-offs, it's always a good idea to start off small, and when your confidence grows, you can then start to perform larger drop-offs in time. During a ride, we're always going to encounter uphills. The more we get into mountain biking, the more we realise we don't want to be walking up hills. We want to challenge ourselves by getting up the more technical, rockier, steeper ascents. We'll need to first of all look at our body position on the bike over these ascents. Our feet, we need to up our cadence so that our feet are spinning a lot faster, just so we can put the bursts of power on. We're aiming to be in a seated position at the nose of the seat, but also we need to be able to jump out of the seat so we can get the back wheel unweighted over rocks, throwing our weight forwards. Coming on up to our elbows, we want to pull back on the elbows and pull down. So we're always planting the front wheel on the ground so we can steer the bike in the direction that we need to go. Our vision needs to be around about 5 metres in front of us, not extending too far up the trail. Thinking like a snooker player, 3 moves ahead. The line choice that we're aiming to get is the one with the most grip. Sometimes we'll be thrown off our line choice, so we have to almost make do with what we're given. Being able to steer around, planting the front wheel, getting our elbows tucked down and back will help us increase our chances to be on the ideal line. So with good advanced technical climbing technique, you can turn your rides around and enjoy the climbs as much as the descents. Technical descending. There's many aspects of mountain biking which I enjoy, but I have to say that technical descending is my favourite. We first have to look at our body position as we're going downhill. We need to have our heels down just to keep our centre of gravity low, whilst we're in the level pedal position. Knees need to be flexed, hips also have to be down and back ever so slightly. Our body is going to have to move forward and backwards at all times, adjusting to the terrain as the wheels bobble about on the rocks and the tree roots. Moving on to our elbows. We need to flex those elbows so that front wheel can really come up to us and absorb the impact of the rocks as we go over them. Fingers cover the brakes, whether you're a 1-finger or a 2-finger braker. Apply the pressure, as before, feathered all the way down. Our vision, looking ahead, but always scanning back towards the front wheel and then picking our vision back up again, further down the trail. We can't let our vision back up, otherwise we have to slow down to become safer. When going downhill, we need to set the bike in the correct gear as well. A bigger gear on a bigger chainring at the front will stop the chain slapping about. Also, we may want to have the gear in a correct gear so we can do a pedal wheelie at a point if we get to slow speed technical descending. When coming down the terrain, we want to be able to try and stay on the best line choice as possible. Don't let it upset you if you are thrown off your line choice. Sometimes we just have to make do a little where we are on the trail. We want to not fight the bike in any way. We definitely want to guide it through the trail, but we also want to stay relaxed and let the bike maybe drift slightly on and off the ideal line, setting up for the next rocks and the next corner. So when getting into technical descending, the best advice is to start off on the lowest slopes with the less rocks. We start off nice and small, build into it gradually. Don't start off too big too soon.
That's the end of our skills DVD. I hope it's inspired you to get out and put some of these new ideas into practice. Also hope it's inspired you to think about coming up to Cumbria and riding some of these fantastic Lake District trails. If you want to find out more about the area, just jump onto golakes.co.uk. If you want to see more about what Cycle Active does, both here and around the world, jump onto cycleactive.co.uk. If you're coming to the lakes, do look us up. We'd be really happy to show you around these fantastic trails that we call home.